Sharks in the pool, that is not cool. I need the tools, take me to school. Feet first into this league, me first, that cannot be. Under the underdog, Monica G. Feeling a whole lot better suddenly. I get in, winning again. You're 1 and 2 in the bag, and I'm going for 3. That is the beat down. God of the best, so I keep. Now, y'all treading water for weeks. Now I'm the shark, so I eat. Now, look, I am not sorry. I understood the pump from which I started. And navigating these drafts is cathartic. So, thanks for the invite to party, yeah. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 152 Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. Joining me tonight, Billy Beeman, as usual. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. You're trying to make me look bad in the Discord, saying we have no content. Are you serious?
I should check with you first.
You know, we always got something cooking. Always got something cooking.
I have felt a little removed. I have a 7-year-old, and she's been out of school for approximately a week and a half, 2 weeks now. So I'm like full on like summer dad family stuff going on, which is cool because it's a good time of year for that when it comes to trying to create content for it's bad if you're trying to create content, but it's also good because it's pretty slow. Like I'm not missing a lot, you know what I mean? So I've been staying away from most of it for a little while, but yeah,
drag me back in once a week, bro. Once a week. Come on.
I know. But we're doing it. Let's go ahead. Actually, I want to say, if you're listening to this podcast on any platform other than Spotify, if you have Spotify, it would help us a lot if you just switch. Go ahead and give us some listens on Spotify. That'd be awesome.
It would be dope. Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah.
Moving on.
It's all good. If you have it.
If you have it, you know. If not, I can give you my password. Let's hop into some news and nonsense. Yeah, so just want a reminder out there for the Scott Fish Bowl Podathon. It's coming up July 8th through the 9th. I'm not repping one tonight, but
I got 2 in the mail. It's the only reason. It's back-to-back weeks. I mean, whatever.
But yeah, July 8th through the 9th starts at 8 a.m. and it goes for like 24 hours or something like that. It's fun to check out. Most of the years I'll pop in, watch 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Mm-hmm. Great lineup. The lineup you can find out on Twitter. I wasn't going to go through the whole cast, but typically everybody has about 15 minutes per show, 20 minutes per show, something like that. And it's fun. Tons of content out there. A lot of great guys doing a lot of great things for a good cause. So check it out.
Yeah. Podathon's cool. We were on there a couple years in a row. We're not going to be on there this year, but it's a really great time, and it's cool because they give a platform to shows like us who are starting out, who are smaller or whatever. And so there's a lot of people who are on the Twitter community and stuff like that we interact with a lot. And then there's also like the CBS guys and ESPN people and all the big platforms, they get on there too. So yeah, it's a great time. Definitely go ahead and support that. We also have the Warrior Bowl coming up as well. And there's just so many of these charity tournaments out there now. Everybody's just trying to do something good and kind of follow in Scott's footsteps. So Warrior Bowl is a very similar one like that. Kind of a lot of the similar rules, but I won the division last year and was lucky enough to be able to give away an invite to this year's Warrior Bowl, which was pretty cool. And I did that through the Dynasty Underdog Discord. And so, shout out Joe, who I threw a question out in there. I don't know what it was. I forgot what it was, but he got the answer pretty quickly. Stoked about that. And so he's going to be in there with me this year. So yeah, if you want, there's opportunities like that and just other fun shit. Just hop into the Dynasty Underdog Discord.
Yeah. I remember what the question was. You asked, what was the very first podcast you ever did with you and Josh? And that was my very first podcast appearance.
Really? Was that first one? The first podcast appearance ever?
Wow. Yeah, I came on there. And in fact, we talked about Scott Fish Bowl the first time.
That's wild.
Yeah, any given pod.
Any Given Pod. It was like right off the bat too. And what's funny is like I don't even think he was ever a listener of Any Given Pod. He heard us talking about it on this show at some point, which is even cooler, like the recall, like just be able to pick
I can't do that
from the back of his mind and pull that out. Like I was pretty impressed. I was like, oh hell yeah, dude, you absolutely deserve this invite. So Hopefully he gives me a run for my money. I don't know if he'll be in my division or not, but it'll be fun nonetheless. So yeah, cool stuff. And everybody trying to do good. It's another charity league. So yeah, just check out the Warrior Bowl, Scott Fish Bowl. Like everybody should sign up for these. It really costs you nothing. And if it costs you anything, you're obviously just going to donate to a good cause, which you should be doing anyway. So yeah, good stuff.
More nonsense about that is like, I didn't realize until Joe came up with that answer and I was kind of putting it together. The whole Billy Beeman, any given Sunday.
Oh, really?
Any given pod. Yeah. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that makes even more sense.
Yeah. What's so funny though is like you'd have to think about that to like put it all together. So, and I don't know if we ever played it up that much, which I don't know. Maybe we weren't creative enough. But yeah, it's like I don't know. It's funny when it's like your real name and there's like a whole character to like play off of. It's like hard to
really
like,
good character.
Yeah, it's like hard to like navigate like how to like do that right and like tastefully. And so I figured the best way was just like just quietly like kind of name the pod, kind of just base it on it and then just live in it. And yeah, I've enjoyed it that way much more, I think, than really trying to feed into it in some crazier way. Where are we? What did we just do? Okay, we need to get into some fantasy stuff.
We're in the nonsense section of the show.
Yeah.
So
we have plenty of more of that to come too. Plenty more of that to come. Okay, really quick. I did want to talk. We've been talking a lot about value over replacement the past couple of weeks, which has been a lot of fun. I'm sure everybody wants to stop hearing that and can't like stand. I'm sure they cannot stand hearing like the acronym VORP anymore, which sounds like an alien, right? From another planet. It's crazy. Anyway, so yeah, I had this discussion on here with Uriah a bunch because I was mainly interested in like looking at quarterback. I'm sorry, not quarterback. Looking at running back versus wide receiver in those middle rounds and seeing like if there was a big difference, as kind of we always talk about with that narrative. And then we started looking at the other positions. We started looking at like if your QB3 really matters and talking about kind of the other positions in terms of those later round QBs, looking in that 13 to 36 range and whatnot. So I jumped on Twitter because I had the conversation with John Hogue on the Superflex Super Show and was kind of, we were going back and forth and he was interested in the convo. So I was kind of giving him just the show. I was linking him the show and saying, hey, check this out. And then during our discussion, we somehow brought up Peter Howard because John and myself, we just can't stop talking about Peter Howard apparently. But I was like, I got to reach out to Peter and just like talk to him about this and see what he thinks. Just kind of, you want to get other people's perspectives, other people who you respect and who you kind of, value their opinions, see what they think of kind of the stuff you're talking about and doing, or if you're just a babbling idiot, which is totally possible. It's just totally possible. But, it was pretty cool seeing Peter throw out a tweet and we can tweet it out from the Dynasty Underdog Twitter, but we have it on our Twitters as well. Or I have it on mine. I quote tweeted it, but he ended up doing the same research after I had kind of had that conversation with him. I'd like to think I kind of influenced that, but he essentially broke it down. I think Uriah, we were talking about it before, said by WAR instead of value over replacement, he did wins over replacement, which is a very, very similar stat. And essentially came to the same conclusions, right? By the numbers, is that the wide receivers in those later rounds tend to give you at least the same value, if not better. They're giving you more return on your investment in those ranges is really just the gist of it, right? Without getting into all of the charts and stuff that he posted and the long back and forth that him and John went through in like 40 different threads within his tweet, which was very, very fun to watch back and forth. But it was kind of interesting because I think like when you see the numbers, it doesn't intuitively you think like the quarterbacks are more valuable, like bottom line. But we're talking about it obviously more from again, a wins or a production standpoint, not necessarily dynasty value, which gets lost in this conversation.
That's the thing, yeah.
And I think that's where John like goes haywire because the whole time he's like, okay, but like I can't prove my point by the numbers, so like I can't just give it to you so you can see what I mean. And I get what he's saying because he's not talking about what we're talking about, right? We're like really, really just by the numbers, like, yo, this is just what it is, but it's obviously not. Like we've talked about this last week, how, when the value comes into it, obviously it changes the whole conversation. So
Absolutely.
I thought it was funny just watching them kind of battle about that, going from both perspectives and never coming to like the same one until maybe like one point where John was like, yeah, maybe I'm like telling it to you from my angle and you're telling it to me from my angle, so whatever. So I thought that was funny, but yeah, they're awesome. I love those guys, but I'm sure that the conversation is going to come up. I'm sure they're going to hop onto a pod and talk about it, but it was cool seeing them seeing at least Peter. And I think John probably understood what we were talking about at the end, but come to the same conclusion about the QB3 and about the value over replacement and kind of the whole, just the whole premise of what we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. Little validity when somebody else, no matter who it is, but when somebody else you respect, obviously kind of comes to the same conclusion. So I did want to bring that up. You can go find it on Twitter. It's a really fun little thread. So yeah, I can check that out.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a hard time trusting us, you could always trust Peter. So.
Yeah, totally. Hopefully that'll we'll get some more buy-in from you after seeing all of that. I think we do some good stuff here and we come up with some good ideas. So one way or another, we are going to talk about some more value over replacement in a little bit. We're going to talk about tight ends and round out the position groups and just get that the hell out of here. And hopefully we'll never have to talk to you about this again.
It was like, honestly, it was like 10 minutes before I was going to bed and I was just kind of scrolling around and I saw that tweet and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to ask Billy to reach down deep and grab the tight ends this time, and we'll leave the whole VORP thing behind us.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like I enjoy these conversations, even if there's limited return on it, because again, it's like those edges you're trying to find. So there could be that little tiny thing that you pull from it where you're like, oh yeah, like maybe I can take advantage of that. And maybe there's not really anything there with tight ends, but there might be. I don't know. We'll look at it.
Cool. I like this. So you said, why can't Hopkins do the Larry Fitzgerald career arc? The answer is there's nothing standing in his way from doing it. He certainly can. You must have seen the tweet from him or whatever that said he wants to play as long as he's a 1,000-yard receiver. He wants to play. And I mean, I love that mentality. It means obviously he loves the game. He's going to do whatever he can to keep his body right. And for a guy that's been in the league as long as he has, like a lot of times they just retired. But if he could still put up 1,000 yards every year, he doesn't see a reason why he should have to stop playing. And I just love hearing that. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that was a big part of it. I've also heard a lot of conversations, especially because I listen to a lot of Patriots talk and all that nonsense. You hear a lot of conversations about, D-Hop's lost a step, this, that, and the other, especially from, again, a lot of you forget a lot of like beat writers, a lot of your, team writers, a lot of the people you listen to that are just like team related, like they're so focused on the team. They really don't know what the hell is happening around the league. And like, they don't have great player takes for the most part, but DeAndre Hopkins clearly is not like, he's never been the fastest guy. He probably has lost a step in terms of like overall speed, but that's never been his game. And it doesn't really matter in terms of how he wins on the field. And I think, you look at Larry Fitzgerald and they're very similar players. I think maybe Larry was a little thicker, maybe you could say, like, a little
his
bit
frame was a little bit
frame wise, but like they're very similar style receivers in terms of how they play, size, how they won on the field, really good route running, deceptive, winning in tight spaces, contested catches, all that kind of stuff. And I don't see why that would go away, later in his career. Like, he's obviously getting older for sure, but how old is D-Hop? Is he 30 yet?
Gotta be close.
Yeah, definitely close, but I'm just, 31. Okay, he is 31. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely when they take a step back, and obviously he's going to, but I think he's still going to be a target hog wherever he goes, right? He's still going to that 20+% target share, you would think, almost no matter where he goes, even if he was kind of like a number 2 in Buffalo or something like that, right? KC, he gets that. Patriots, he gets that. Tennessee, he probably gets close to that, if not that anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So anywhere he goes, he's getting the volume that you want, and probably for multiple years. I just don't see why he can't conform his game. And I think the only reason, maybe the reason why, who are we comping? Who am I talking about here? Why why Fitzgerald was able to do what he did so well is because they allowed him to play out of the slot. I don't know if
Yep.
I don't know if that was more like because of the scheme and they knew what they could, the way they could use him. I don't know if somebody's going to try to force him onto the outside and not allow him to be multiple and play on the inside more, because obviously he would dominate from inside there. So that may be a big part of it. And I think maybe coaching staff would be the only thing that would hold him back from being able to do this, and injury maybe. But, he's only had like one injury really in his career, later in his career. And these guys come back sometimes stronger. So I don't know. I think he could come back and have a pretty big year here. And I think he could have kind of that career arc. He definitely could have more years than I think we're giving credit for. And definitely he's a value in terms of, Dynasty. I can look at his ADP right now, actually. You could jump in.
It's probably, I mean, just for from a production standpoint, what he's able to get you, and hopefully, whatever team decides, to draft him, to give him a contract, hopefully not the Patriots, because they don't know what they're doing with wide receivers. If he goes to the Patriots, he's toast, like all the other ones they have.
God, honestly, I feel like he could actually overcome that situation out of all the guys that have kind of done this, especially going to a Bill O'Brien offense that he's played in before. He's going at the end of the 8th round as wide receiver 38 currently in Dynasty.
If he starts week 1, which he will, that's insane. He's never going to finish his outside wide receiver 30 range. He's too damn good. I don't care if he's 31.
Yeah. And you're not going to feel good about drafting him for whatever reason, just because like maybe just the way that his last year kind of went, but you probably should feel better about drafting him than we do.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. He missed 6 games due to PEDs coming off the year before where he had his injury or whatever. And then he was a staple. If you had him on your roster, you're starting him every week. I mean, absolutely starting him every week.
Do you worry about Julio, like a Julio Jones type finish?
That's a good question. Yeah, I didn't expect that from Julio Jones either, to be honest with you. Because he was pretty dominant until he left Atlanta, and then you kind of expected him to at least have a year or two. Yeah, now that you bring it up, yeah, this is a little concerning, but I saw what he did last year, and it was not what I expected. I really thought he'd come back more washed than what he was, because he came back, I think, like week 1, he came back, scored a touchdown, put up 14 fantasy points or something. I mean, I don't know the exact number. You could look it up, but I remember I was like, holy shit, he did come back, and he looks good. Like, I should have drafted him.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the game that he left because he tore whatever he tore, I'm pretty sure he caught a touchdown and left the game. If I remember correctly, he caught a touchdown and left the game. I'm almost 100% sure it was like a fade route to the end zone.
I know Michael Gallup did.
Yeah, I mean, but this guy is elite, and I think that he's going to come back elite as well. Now, as far as the Julio Jones thing, I was asking that question because in my head I thought about it, and I'm like, I just think that Julio Jones lost the athleticism overall, and that was he lost the explosiveness. That was a huge part of his game because in my opinion, he wasn't the most technical route runner. I think that DeAndre Hopkins is a much more sound technical route runner, and he wins a lot more again in those tight spaces because he can move well in those tight spaces. He can deceive the defender and get himself open. He knows how to read the field. I think Julio was just a little bit more physically dominant than everybody else.
For sure.
Right. And I think he lost that at some point, and maybe that might be the difference. So just kind of trying to pick apart, because I mean, you look back, you think T.O., you think of the greats like T.O. There's a lot of receivers who played until they were older. I mean, 31's not the end, I don't think, for Hopkins. So I think there's still some time left.
So just going back real quick because we're here. Hopkins missed 6 weeks because of the suspension. And as soon as he came back, week 7, first week back, 14 targets, 10 receptions, 92 yards. Second week back, 13 targets, 12 receptions, 100 yards. After that, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 94 yards. Next week, 10 receptions, 14 targets, 94 yards. I mean, his worst week was week 12 against the Chargers. 6 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown. That's his worst week. How's that washed?
Talk about earning targets, demanding targets.
Immediately.
But it's not even it's not even like they're targeting him. No. He's demanding 14 targets. He's demanding 10 targets regularly.
From the outside.
Yeah, look, maybe he takes a step back. Maybe he takes a little bit of a step back, but you're still going to get a guy who's demanding 8 targets a game, probably on average.
Yeah.
On average, like wherever he goes. So, I mean, what would you pay for? Like, we got to get down to like the actual business here, right? Like, what would you pay for him? Would you pay if you knew your team was like knew your team? I hate saying that because like obviously anything can happen. Your team can just completely fall apart. But like if you were very confident that your team is going to be a top 4 finish, are you paying a first?
Let's look here.
It's like you shouldn't have to probably.
You probably shouldn't have to. Look, if you're a contending team and you get away with a second and a third, that'd be awesome because people are scared about the age. What I would do a second and a third all day, every single day.
You should see, if you're not on YouTube, you should see Uriah's face. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him more excited about going after a player. I think he's going to go send offers.
I think I might have to.
Right now.
But yeah, I mean, if I'm going to finish
the
110 or later, it's a gamble. Like, and you're going to be sitting there during the rookie draft, and you're not going to have your first round pick, and it's going to be a sad feeling because it usually is. You're just like, oh, I want to get in there and play too. But you could get Hopkins for, according to DTC, you get him for like the 112.
Okay, so yeah, you could get him for a second and something else. Then that's what you should be targeting him for. Yeah, I agree with Uriah. If you can get him for a second and a third or whatever matches that kind of value for you, I think that's an absolute smash. Like,
take one of your young guys like Zay Flowers, and you might be able to do Zay Flowers straight up for him. We don't know what Zay Flowers is going to do. Hopkins is on that field. He's going to demand those targets. So I like it. I like it a lot. I like the fact that he hasn't signed anywhere yet because this gives us a chance to be proactive and kind of see some foresight into what he could potentially be. He's still a stud. And I think that's what's important to recognize. I didn't think we were going to talk this long about Hopkins, but hey, I like it. And I'm going to go try to get some.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think it's a good discussion. It's something that a lot of people, I feel like they're not thinking about, but clearly with how far he's fallen, we're thinking about it negatively. Probably shouldn't be as much. Got to like just chill a little bit on that. We do this in Dynasty all the time with the aging players where we just like give up on all of them. And there's totally some to give up on. And there's situations that you don't really want to, that you don't want to be stuck holding the bag with. Like Mike Evans is one that I really don't feel like he was been a great receiver, but his situation, I don't see getting better in time over the next couple of years. Now things change fast, but I just don't see it with him. And you've seen he's not necessarily much of a multiple wide receiver at this point in his career. He's more of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say one trick pony. He's not necessarily that, but he's just less versatile than I think he used to be. Yeah. And I don't think that's going to get any better. Plus, he has a whole year here with a terrible situation. DeAndre Hopkins should be going into a situation that they're either it's going to be with a really good team and they're looking to utilize him to win a lot, or it's going to be one of these teams that really needs a wide receiver and is going to utilize him a lot. So one way or another, so I just think like it's kind of picking out the situations and seeing which ones with those aging veterans make more sense. I wonder if you could trade Mike Evans for Hopkins plus before he signs somewhere.
I doubt it. I don't know anybody who would want to do that. But
do you think you could go straight up right now, Evans for Hopkins?
I think you could. I don't know. It's not a trade I don't think most people are wanting to do. Old receiver for old receiver. I don't know. I mean,
Evans is a little bit younger, right? He's like 29.
I would do it, but I think it'd be hard to find somebody. I think it'd be hard to find a trade partner for that.
Interesting. That's an interesting conversation. Okay.
I challenge you.
No, I don't even know if I have any more Mike Evans to get rid of. I might have done it. Unless we have one more. No, I think we got rid of him. I don't know. Yeah. Cool. Good for us. Good for me. All right. Last piece of nonsense. Yeah. Last piece of nonsense.
Yes. So in the Discord, we're asking, hey, what's the best fantasy trophy, belt, trophy, or otherwise? It's just not something we normally talk about, but like, Is there anything like that in any of your leagues? Because I see these championship belts and stuff. I do have a trophy from my very first league that we've passed around from time to time, but I don't have any other leagues where there's actually any prize besides money.
No, that's the best prize right there is money.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been in a league that has, which I'm trying to think if I have. I don't think I've ever been in a league that has, I have been in a league that has a trophy. Actually, it was a work league, but I never won it. That said, yeah, I mean, I think the best would probably just be like a customized trophy, right? Like customized or whatever, like your league is kind of about, I don't know, whatever that is. Like you can get those from a ton of different places, but they're like super expensive, like for absolutely no reason. Like the cheapest price is like $150 for one. And it's like, I mean, the grand scheme of things, like obviously it's not that much, but it's like enough. Like why? Like, why
I would rather have the $150.
Yeah, like for sure. Like I could find a lot of things to spend that on. But I don't. You know what I don't like? I will say, like, I don't like the championship ring.
I don't like
it's
the
just
belt.
like. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's like very like WWE. Like,
I'm not into wrestling, so like I don't want a belt. Like I don't care.
And it doesn't like go with football. At least like the ring and the trophy. Like you do get a ring at the Super Bowl. You do get a trophy at the Super Bowl. Like those two things like add up to me. So I guess if you're gonna do two, those should be. But go with the trophy. Trophy makes the most sense. Like
absolutely.
Yeah, I like the custom ones though. I like the ones that are like fun and like funky. Like those are probably the best ones.
All right, cool. This also came from the Discord. They're talking about Aiyuks ADP maybe being too low, or why are people fading Aiyuk? And I kind of threw it out there. Those wide receivers, I feel like there's only really like 1 year, in my opinion, that I feel like Debo was getting valued as like a high asset. Aiyuk has never really quite been there. But I think it's just the offense. And then now you have the quarterback uncertainty for like what, a third year in a row? Right? As long as these guys have been with the team, they've always had this like, who's going to throw the ball to him? Is it Jimmy G? Is it Trey Lance? And then now is it Brock Purdy? Is it Trey Lance? And I think there's just so much like question there. So I kind of understand the fading of Aiyuk. I feel like it's just I think that's good for everyone who thinks that Aiyuk is good, is that he's cheaper now, but I think it has to do with the offense. And then the other question is, what would you rather have, Aiyuk or Debo in Dynasty? Where are their ADPs?
Yeah, no, I'm looking at kind of all this right now. I actually wanted to see if I could pull up if they have their fantasy. Oh, they do. Okay, perfect. I wanted to make sure I had the fantasy points in this time too. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, because of this conversation, I was like, let me go ahead and grab. I wanted to grab the stats first of all of the time they played with Brock Purdy last year, because I think that's obviously going to be the most indicative of what we're looking for going forward, right? But talk about ADP really quick first. Aiyuk is going 2 rounds behind Debo. Debo's at 5'11". Aiyuk's at 701 currently. So wide receiver 24, wide receiver 28. And I mean, I think just from that perspective alone, and after I kind of looked at the numbers, I think you'd probably rather have Aiyuk at the value, to be honest. I'm just Debo's going around Kirk Cousins, JSN, DJ Moore, Pittman, Judy, like that kind of group. Who else? Yeah, George Pickens in there, J.K. Dobbins, Treylon Burks. You may want Treylon Burks more than Debo Samuel. It's interesting. I'm just kind of looking at that. But so, yeah, really quick, looking at their time with Brock Purdy last year here, I could probably throw this up since everything's cooperating. Share screen. Let's do this one. Share. Yeah. Okay, cool. So looking at here, this is a 33rd team. Great site. Just looking at all the receivers for the 49ers last year in the time that Brock Purdy played, which was, I think, week 9 through the AFC Championship, right? Something like that, or whenever he got injured. And these are the totals for those players in that time. So see here. Let me go to the screen. So in terms of target share, right? Just sorting it by that. So he was second in target share at 22.3%, right? 21.6 targets, 21.6% targets per out run, 2.0 yards per out run, 7.9 ADOT. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. 12.1 ADOT, and he dominated the team air yard share at 39.2%. Like nobody really came even close to him there, which is something you want to see. It just means there's a lot of opportunity for him, right? 656 air yards. In terms of fantasy points, 93.8 in that time to Debo's 72.6, even though Debo dominated the target share. It's 26.2%. George Kittle pretty close behind at 19.7%, right? So, I mean, you look at the numbers, and I mean, Debo obviously didn't play as many games, right? He played 6 games, but if that kind of just holds over that span, you know, Debo's just not. I mean, look at the ADOT, 5.0 ADOT for Debo compared to 12.1
that's
for
different.
Aiyuk. They're not even in the same stratosphere. Like they're not playing the same role at all. So,
and they're separated by what you said, 6 or 8 ADP wide receiver spots.
Yeah, 4. I think wide receiver 24 for Samuel and wide receiver 28 for Aiyuk in about 2 rounds between the two.
Yeah, so I think all things created equal, based on the production last year, I think Aiyuk is probably just the one you want to target then.
I mean, I would think so. He had 51 targets in that time period to Debo's 39. You know, I was talking about kind of in the chat how I think my concern was kind of really target distribution, which now you look at it and it doesn't seem to be much of an issue necessarily for Aiyuk. It seems like in that time, Purdy could support 3 guys around 20+% target share. And I mean, maybe Aiyuk fully healthy, Kittle fully healthy. Maybe he demands a little bit more, especially with Purdy, like just kind of how he plays.
Mm-hmm.
But you're seeing that he clearly likes to target Aiyuk downfield in general a bit more, but clearly way more than Debo. And those are the more valuable targets. So in terms of players on this team that you'd want, I mean, age, ADP, value, just kind of production efficiency, like, you know, the advanced metrics we like to see. Yeah, Aiyuk seems like a pretty good bet here. And he seems like he's kind of valued a little bit too low probably, and especially in terms of startup. I mean, you'd easily pay it first for him, right? I mean, the kid's,
yeah,
he's pretty young. Like, let me stop sharing the screen here.
Oh, he was a Senior Bowl guy, right? Aiyuk.
Yeah, and he was a N'Keal Harry teammate, so he's overcome the stigma. That's good. He's how old is Aiyuk? Really quick, just looking. I think he's like super young, 25 years old for Aiyuk. So lots of years left. I think the only thing that really would get you worried is Trey Lance, right? Like, what happens if Trey Lance were to come into the picture? Because we don't know. We really don't. We can't say whether he'd be great, whether he'd be bad. I think large majority, including probably his own coaching staff, think that it wouldn't be great, especially for most of the pass catchers, right? Especially probably for the downfield targets. Those, you know, I mean, not necessarily downfield targets. Like, he is a good long ball. He's a good thrower, you know, deep pass. He's good at throwing deep passes, but in terms of what Aiyuk's doing, Aiyuk's not going like deep. He's going middle of the field. These are touch passes. These are, you know, they're working different areas of the field. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's really to Trey Lance's strength. We just don't know. So I think that would be the worry, is that Purdy's not the same guy because of the injury. They flip-flop between quarterbacks, whatever, you know, just concern about the quarterback is really going to be the main issue here. But I think Debo Samuel is still being drafted in, you know, the end of the 5th round. So he's not getting hit by this, like, quarterback's going to, I mean, Debo used to be a 3rd round pick or whatever, but that was probably, his value was way too inflated, artificially inflated by that season with all the rushing work. And he's still a really good receiver, but he's not really being impacted like Brandon Aiyuk is. And I don't think the target volume, the target distribution, any of that, you know, just based on what I'm looking at, if Purdy's there and healthy, it's probably not an issue, and he's probably a value.
Love it. Yeah, it's kind of the same conclusion that I came to. So we're on to something there. Go trade your Debo shares for Aiyuk plus.
Yes, and you should definitely be able to get like near second round value. Maybe if you throw in like a 4th round pick, a 3rd round pick, just on your initial offer, Debo and a 3rd for Aiyuk and a high 2nd or something like that, you could probably get something like that done, and I'd feel pretty good about it.
Cool. All right, so this next thing is kind of what not on Aiyuk and Debo.
No. I mean, we have more we're talking about. 1 second, let me get water.
Yep.
All right. Pardon me, but if I'm going to talk a lot, I need to be hydrated.
We don't got to make this long or anything, but
I was totally joking.
It kind of caps off. Kind of caps off what we were talking about before. But so here's a tweet from I have no idea how to say his name, which is my bad, but it's Zara Kantsabedian at ZKantsFF. And he said since 2019 in tight end premium leagues, 0.5 or more per reception, which is kind of standard. Only tight ends 1 through 4 have matched the production of top 12 wide receivers. And I was like, oh, now we're talking again about, replacement value players. Like, how do you want to construct your roster? Like, who should you be trying to get? And he said, if you aren't drafting a top 4 tight end in a tight end premium league, then it's highly probable that you're drafting a tight end that matches the production of a wide receiver 3, which we don't really want a lot of wide receiver 3s on our team. Well, maybe we do after what we've discussed. I don't know. So I was like, shoot, who are the top three tight end 3, tight end 4? And he said, from 2020 was Kittle and Andrews, 2021 was Kittle and Gronk. That Gronk stat's kind of crazy. Man, he really balled out, didn't he? And then 2022 was Hawk and Andrews. And basically I said, so basically if Andrews is taken already, then go ahead and punt the tight end position. He says that's a fair assessment. If I had to select the 2 tight end 3 and tight end 4 candidates, they'd be Hawk and Waller. And I think I agree on that this year. I think very likely going to be Kelsey, Andrews, Hawk, and Waller as your top 4 tight ends.
Interesting.
So I asked Billy, hey, could we do a little value over replacement thing there and see if that kind of sticks? Like, is drafting the 5th tight end or 6th tight end off the board even really worth it? Or should I just wait until tight end 10?
Sure. Yeah. It's great. Worth looking at. So let's pop it up here. Let's pop it up. Get rid of the other stuff we were talking about here so we don't slow any stream down. Okay, cool. So like Uriah said, he asked me to pull the data. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. I think I shared this sheet with the Discord, but if not, I'll pop it into the stats and graphs channel in there. I have a really big ass sheet with all this stuff in it, or Google sheet. So I'll probably try to consolidate it all into. It's all in like different sheets for the positions right now. I'll consolidate it into one sheet eventually, and probably start doing it year over year and messing with that. But looking at this from 2020, 2021, 2022, we're looking at the average value over replacement variance between like the top 8, 12, 13 through 36. Now with tight end, I broke it down slightly differently, you can see. And I felt like I had to. I broke it down instead of the average 8, 12, 13, 36. I did average of the top 5, 12, and 13 through 36. And that's just because that is where there's the big break in difference. You can really see it. And I was trying to find like, that's why those were semi-arbitrary. Obviously top 12 is a wide receiver 1, running back 1. But like you could see in the data when you look at it, the top 8, there's a stark just like break there. And so I was trying to kind of just break down those tiers essentially. And that's what I did here with the tight ends as well. So I did 5, 12, 13 through 36. And I kind of just compared those to those same, to the top 8, 12, and 36 from the running back And I put tight end there, I just realized, but it's running back and wide receiver. I averaged out. I didn't even realize that. So it's running back and wide receiver and tight end. So I averaged out the running back and wide receiver versus tight end average value over replacement within these ranges, right? That's the gist of it. And you can just see, we can talk about tight end first alone and just look at that. So looking at last year in the top 5, the average variance, between value over replacement was 6 points, right? So little, you get a good bit of value in that top 5. In the top 12, 3 points. So, but it's not much, right? And you're looking at, if you just think about the other positions and how much, difference in the value over replacement there is in that range, like there's 11 for the wide receiver running backs, right? On average, quarterback is kind of up there in that range too for the top. There's 3 points you're getting average difference between the top 12 tight ends, right? So you're just not getting much. Even at the top, even the tight end 1 range, you're not getting much.
No, not at all. I mean, that really just is, I think that's really confirms just kind of like what I have always just thought to be true. And it just, when you put it out here like that, 3.6 points, like who cares? Like, you shouldn't be leaving a draft without one of the top 12 tight ends in the first place, but this is definitely telling you, hey, don't draft 2 of them because it doesn't really matter. Like, and then comparing it to what you could get from, one of the top 12, or even just a running back, wide receiver 13 through 36 is going to give you double what you're going to get with that second tight end or your first tight end that you waited way too long on playing in tight end premium.
Right, which is why for the most part you should obviously fade the position until the very late rounds, because if you find the next George Kittle, that's where they're going to be most likely. They're not where they're going to be most likely, but that's where you're going to get the value out of them. Otherwise, they're just already going to be top 5 tight ends. You know what I mean? They're already going to be those guys you can't acquire. If they're in the middle rounds, unless it was injury related and they're fading, we're fading them for some reason we shouldn't be, then you're not going to get much of an advantage from there. Like Uriah said, in the 13 through 36 range of tight ends, you're getting 0.2 variance in value over replacement. So there's literally no difference. It's zero. You're getting no difference in the 13 through 36 range. So after the top 12 tight ends, it's garbage. You're not getting anything. Okay. So totally should be prioritizing all the other positions unless dynasty value obviously comes into play and those things make sense. But it's usually unlikely that happens unless you're going for the sleeper tight end. Like obviously that can't happen. You find some gems there who break out eventually. But for the most part, go ahead. No, go.
I was say, but hopefully that's like the second tight end you took. Or,
not even. It should be like the 3rd or 4th tight end you took.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Third, right? And you're just hoping you put him in your, according to Snipes, Dynasty Trades HQ. He has his garden, right? So you grab one of those tight ends and you just kind of hope, right? But trying to fill out a roster, I think this just really puts it out there that you really just need one of those top 4 guys. Big time. If you don't, then just kind of wait till a little bit later and see what happens. But yeah, definitely try to go out and get, your Mark Andrews, your Kelsey's still, your Hawkinson's, Waller's still, even though he's a little bit older. I don't know. This is interesting.
Yeah. And again, like just, to clarify again, when we're looking at value over replacement, we're looking at the average value over a waiver wire type player, right? Mm-hmm. So when we say that in the top 5, you're getting 6 points over what you would be getting out of one of those 13 through 36 type guys, right? Because it falls off at some, I don't know where exactly in there it falls off to literally 0 replacement player, but you're getting 6 points over that. Okay. Which isn't even that much of an advantage when you look at compared to the other positions, but that's the greatest advantage you're going to get, which is double what you're getting overall in the top 12 range. So like Uriah is saying, I want to just highlight why you should be why you should be prioritizing that. And this also, we've just been talking about 2022, but on our chart here, if you're with us, we have 2021, 2020. This is like, I'm not saying it's like predictive necessarily, but it's sticky as hell. 2021, same thing in the top 5. Average is 6. Top 12 is 3. In 2020, top 5, average is 6.4. A little bit higher, actually. top 12, 4. And the other ones are pretty high 3. So very, very similar numbers. It's just you're getting the same things every single year. Same things every single year until something changes overall with the position and we just get like this influx of amazing talent. The top 5 is where you want to be and probably at the very top of the top 5.
Absolutely. Nailed it.
All right, cool.
Thanks for doing that. And then, we won't do this VORP thing again until maybe next year.
Ever again. No.
Year.
Yeah, totally. There is a lot of value, no pun intended, a lot of value in talking about this. Again, we're talking about edges here. We're talking about adding context to things that you may already know about, that you may already intuitively like just do. But it's good to kind of like do things with purpose and understand why you're doing them and just add, like I said, context, add everything you kind of need to understand fully what you're doing. I think it makes a lot more sense in the end, and you can purposefully attack leagues, attack trades, attack different, pieces of the dynasty landscape. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Let's talk some trades and non-trades before we get out of here.
Let's do it. All right. So Discord trade discussion. This was actually, I think like a couple days ago, maybe like 5 days ago or so, this happened in the Discord, but I thought it was interesting. Somebody popped in and said, what do you think? Joe Burrow and Tank Dell or Justin Fields, Zay Flowers in a 24-second? Real quick, where do you fall on that? I'll give you my my spiel after.
I'm gonna go ahead and take the Burrow side.
Okay, cool.
Burrow, yeah, I'll take the Burrow side. Tank Dell, I really have my concerns that he's going to beat anything. Fields, I hope, is what Fields was last year. Flowers, I'm not really sure on. I just having a dude top 5 quarterback like Burrow just seems like the safe bet. Where are you at?
Yeah, so I don't have the numbers literally right in front of me, the value over replacement numbers, but that kind of comes into play here just with part of my thinking on it, and just, kind of being risk averse as I am. Like I view Burrow as a really safe option in terms of having a top 5 quarterback. We've seen him do it already, and he doesn't need the rushing work to get there. He has elite pass catchers, right? And that's not going to change. Like him and Jamar Chase are locked in together. They're going to sign both these guys to a deal easily. They may not let Higgins leave the building. And even if they do, they're probably going to add somebody else that's, competent enough. And he's just going to keep, we're talking about 5+ years of just like, you're getting potential top 5 production out of your quarterback. Justin Fields, you don't know that. And yeah, you value the rushing work a ton because obviously you can, that can lead to kind of the Konami code, cheat code in fantasy if they just, hit the highest of heights. But we did look at the value over replacement, and we did look at how flat quarterback kind of just is in general, right? Even towards the top, it's a pretty flat position in terms of scoring. Even if they score more points in other positions, it's pretty flat up there, even in the top 8 range. Maybe, the top 5 range is, whatever. But again, Fields hasn't proven that he can pass well enough to kind of even get there, really. So for all those reasons, it's kind of Burrow for me there, but I can't fault somebody for taking the Field side. I do think that there's some value on that side. Like if he does hit, you do have kind of extra assets, especially if Zay Flowers becomes something. Like it is a nice side in terms of, trying to add value and compete in Dynasty.
Yeah, it's a fair trade in my opinion. I mean, it's Fields a first and a second for Burrow and a dart throw. So I think it's a fair trade. For my teams, I'm always trying to win. Securing Burrow with all the things that you mentioned, I didn't even think about, like with his supporting cast. It's going to be good for a long time. He's always going to have quality players to throw to, and I think the organization is slightly better ran than the Bears organization. It seems like it, at least. So. But I love Fields, and I love Fields. If Fields is what Fields was after they decided, hey, we're going to let him run. So we'll see. He still doesn't have anybody to throw to. So.
Yeah, I mean, he has DJ Moore. I mean, DJ Moore is pretty good, but.
Yeah, it's true.
But no, I mean, that said, I do think just personally, Fields will probably be starting next year. But there's a lot of people who reasonably think that he might not be. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If he doesn't play well, there's a potential they just reset it. So there's much more risk. Just comparing the two, there's much more risk on the field side than there is the Burrow side. Especially if you leave out the health stuff, like it does, Burrow's easily the kind of safe and productive option. So that's the way I go. But again, I don't think either one of us can kill you for the other side.
Nope.
Okay, this one went down in Console Wars in one of our favorite leagues. This was a crazy trade. I just wanted to jump into it. Actually, friend of the show, been on the show multiple times. Paul Patterson, our own DFF. He does the Dynasty Football Factory, the Factory Tour, the podcast, and the YouTube show. He's doing an amazing job at this, so go check his shit out. He got the Josh Allen side of this, and I'll just say right up front, I think he won this deal, but here's what it is. He got Josh Allen for Brock Purdy, Bryce Young, Jahan Dotson, and a 24 first. It'll probably be fairly early. I mean, early enough. What do you think about this one, Uriah?
It seems like a lot to give up for Josh Allen. But,
okay.
But I'm still on the Josh Allen side. I think what really kind of helped me understand this, why it makes a lot of sense, was we had, he's going to kill me. Ben Dovin. He's the commissioner for Console Wars, and he's been on the show before. Australian. Shout out to my kangaroo fellows. He
Down under.
Down under. You gotta be tough if you live there. You gotta be tough.
Yeah.
But he was saying, even if Purdy is the starter, Bryce Young is, perfectly average, and you have a 24 first and Dotson's whatever. He's saying that, it's still in like 3 years, like you're probably still gonna wish you had Allen. Because we've just seen Allen is that dude. He's a top 5 fantasy quarterback. It's just what he is. At his worst, he's gonna be top 10. Like, there's no doubt about it, right? That's just who he is, we'll see what happens if, Diggs is gone and he doesn't have a decent wide receiver to throw to anymore. But I think they're going to see how much Diggs helped him, and they're going to try to keep. It's going to be, a mini dynasty. Maybe they're not going to win a bunch of like Super Bowls or anything, but they're always going to be a competitive team. And Josh Allen's going to be there for a very, very long time. And even if Purdy is a starter, he's never, ever going to touch Josh Allen's jockstrap as far as fantasy production points. Bryce Young, probably the exact same thing. Dotson's a decent little wide receiver, but he plays for the Washington Commanders, and that whole organization is trash. And they don't have anybody to throw to, and they've never had anybody that's really good. Terry McLaurin is dying there. He could be so much better if he was in a better team. And a 24 first is whatever, right? So, it's not whatever. It's a big piece, but to get Josh Allen, I think that's what you have to pay. And I don't think you're ever going to regret it.
Yes, that's essentially 2 firsts. 2 firsts. I guess a late first maybe in Dotson. So I would call it a second, but 2 firsts, a second, and Purdy's I guess a first round pick.
Maybe. Someone's going to try to get you.
You paid 3 firsts and a second for Josh Allen. I mean, that's probably the going rate, to be honest with you. And I do see these assets as, Purdy's not going to be a real difference maker fantasy wise. Bryce Young may never be. Maybe, I'm not trying to undersell the kid, but we've seen plenty of first overall picks. But we know what Josh Allen is. He is exactly what you wish every quarterback you picked in Dynasty would be. So from that perspective, easily over those two. And I agree. Look, Dotson, he's a fine player and he'll be productive. But this is we're talking about maybe a top 36 wide receiver, maybe. Mm-hmm. Like that's not a difference making player on your team. We've talked about the value of replacement plenty to know that, we're talking about a top quarterback here. We don't need to be worrying about wide receiver threes from that perspective. And yeah, the first maybe, the best, Bryce Young is probably the best asset here, but the first is the second best asset on this side of the deal. I mean, yeah, this is what you pay for Josh Allen. I think this is just what you have to do. And I love kind of just, seems like to me a move that I would make. I like consolidating for studs. I like moving, multiple pieces to really just have a team that is just, bench proof. You just start all your players.
Yeah.
And that's what I think this does. It kind of allows you to just consolidate a lot of pieces into one really great piece that you can rely on when the other ones you necessarily can't.
Those trades are not easy to get done. And so for people who look at the value that he had to give up for Josh Allen at first, just like I did, that 24 first is just like, to me, I'm like, dang, you had to do it, but you probably have to. You probably have to do that. Like, I don't think this deal gets done if he's offering a 24 second.
Yeah, and let me give Paul some credit here too. Trading these pieces for Josh Allen. I haven't looked at his team. I'll say that I haven't looked at it in a while. He's made a couple deals since. He might have put himself in position to compete, and he gave his first away, thinking / knowing, whatever you want to say, that he's going to kind of turn this around, and it's not going to be an early pick. It's going to be at the very least 8 or later or something like that. And if you can swing that, then that first is really inconsequential in the grand scheme of things when you're going after Josh Allen. The best piece by far would have been Bryce Young, and that's still a projection at best right now.
Yep. Yeah, good job.
Okay, cool. So last one here, I just kind of heard this talked about a little bit, and I thought this was interesting. Jonathan Taylor for Nick Chubb and a first. Just say 24 first, whatever you want to call it. I just want to say the context, I think, that was given a little bit more to it. This may have been the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast, and I can just say this here too, I guess, but the context they gave around it was that Nick Chubb is not that old. I don't think it was the Fantasy Footballers podcast. I forgot who this was, but he's 27 years old, first of all, so he's that old. He is that old. But they were saying, this was also a former Dynasty Football Factory writer.
To where they all come from.
Yeah, that's where they all come from. At Quintoris. You probably know this guy. It's Rob something on Twitter. I forgot exactly what his handle is, but he's got a pretty good following now. And he was talking about how Nick Chubb will probably give you the same production over the next 2 or 3 years that JT will. And I thought that was an interesting conversation. But just, I guess, how do you feel about the deal and I guess the conversation around that?
I could see if you're like, okay, here's one thing. I think JT and Nick Chubb are going to finish pretty close together this year. Mm-hmm. So if my roster, a couple spots different, it's probably going to be pretty close. I know that JT
he might finish higher than JT this year. He might finish higher than JT this year.
Well, no, I assume Chubb will finish higher. Yes, but I think it's going to be pretty close. So if you're trying to compete and not really worried about age, and if you get that first back to get Chubb and JT, so you have Chubb's points and you're taking away JT's points, and you still might be positive there. You're just losing a bunch of years. Even if it isn't what puts you over and actually gets you to the ship, and say you make it to the finals and come in second or something like that, the real big consolation there is you have a first. So you go ahead and grab your running back again and start out all over again, try to get younger again. This is the type of trades I like to make, where it's like you're kind of hedging your bets. You're like, okay, I'm going to take the value I have, the dynasty value I have in youth, and I'm going to try to look for production that's very, very similar. But I see a huge value difference here. I'm going to go ahead and trade player A for player B, hope that the fantasy points kind of work out to be just about the same. And if I didn't make the right move, hey, I got another pick next year. I don't know if you could do JT for Chubb in a first, though. Do you think you could do that? I think Chubb still has a lot of value.
I don't know. I mean, I think if you had a team that was not competing, I mean, and they weren't super savvy, like they're not thinking about their first necessarily, maybe. And, I think a lot of people would look at JT like, wow, that's buying like a lot of years back. And he's like former 101 pick. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, so, and Anthony Richardson's in town. You could just buy into like, it's an amazing offense and everything, even though there's a lot about RPO and rushing quarterbacks.
Rookie quarterbacks, rookie running quarterbacks.
Yeah, and RPOs that and which may be a lot of what Anthony Richardson's doing early on, who knows, but how you don't pass the ball to your running back in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
So design passes to a wide receiver and never a running back really in those situations. So, so yeah, like there's, but you can buy into a lot. You can just talk yourself into a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know if you could do that, but I don't think I would be, I don't know what, like, would I be willing to take a second instead back to make that happen? And would I feel, because like I do feel like I'm trying to work this out in my head. Obviously, I'm like, short circuiting because I am really trying to figure this out in my head. Basically, I'm thinking, all right, so the best case scenario in my mind would be I make this trade, I get Nick Chubb, he helps me, like you said, to a top 2 finish at least, right? I have the extra first. He did so well for me because that's what I bought him for. I said he's going to produce super well this year, and I can move him anyway, right? I can move him and be like, yo, he finished over JT, right? If he finished over JT, he's going to be a damn good running back that I should be able to move as well if I want to get off of him for, whatever I want to get off of him for, whether it be another running back younger and give up some sort of value, whatever it is, right? Or if he's so good, I can move him now for another first plus a player. So that's the best in my mind. That's how it has to work out for it to really be effective because he is 27 years old. He really, to me, he only has one great year left in him. I don't know how those legs can handle 600 plus more carries. I don't.
Yeah.
So
no, you're right. So I was thinking about, okay, so if I'm on the other side, if I have Chubb and I have an extra first laying around, am I going out to get JT for that? I don't think I feel comfortable doing that.
What would you feel comfortable giving up if you had? I mean, you have Nick Chubb. I know you have Nick Chubb in DU1, right? Or
I have Nick Chubb a lot of places. I was getting him
DU2 at least. I think DU2. Either way, you have him in those leagues. What, like, if I were to come to you and say I have JT, what would, like, I do have JT in one of those leagues. If I were to come to you and say JT for Nick Chubb, what will you add to get JT? What are you saying to me?
I'll give you Chubb and
bleep off. F off. Get out of here. I don't want to hear it.
Honestly, the way I run most of my teams, I would probably just stick with Chubb and try to have my first for next year because I think that Chubb's going to do basically what JT's going to do, and then we're going to have the same discussion about JT in about 2 years. So I'm going to keep my first. And
forget the first. Forget that.
So if
in your ideal world, if you could make the perfect trade, if you wanted JT for a good value from Nick Chubb, what do you think that trade would look like? Just straight up even, or
no, obviously not. I'll throw you a second. I throw you a second, or one of the kids I drafted in a second.
Okay.
Chubb and a Kendrick Miller.
You clearly aren't the target for this trade, but I'm trying to break you down to base form in terms of what you would do in a vacuum, almost best case scenario, you get JT for Nick Chubb plus a second. That's your.
If I'm rolling and I have JT and you sent me Chubb and a first for him, I will say yes. I will take Chubb and a first for my JT.
Okay. I think I have 2 shares of JT. I feel like I should be trading him, but I'm reluctant. For some reason, I'm reluctant to do it. And both teams are, let me see. DU2, I have him. Yeah, and the other league I have him in, I'm competitive, very competitive too. So both of them I'm very competitive in. So I'm trying to figure out basically, how I can get value off of it. How I can, without, because I'm worried that he's just on this downward trajectory that he'll never come out of. And maybe he'll at 25, 26 or 26, probably he'll have one good year, one really good year because they finally get it all together there.
With JT?
Indy. Yeah. I'm worried that
his sophomore slump that he had. And you're like, oh, is this the norm? Or is it going to get better?
It's not him I'm worried about. It's the situation. It's the rookie quarterback. It's not the targets are going to go away, in a big way. They're going to go away in a big way. So it's not necessarily oh, he's bad, he's going to decline. It's his situation's just not super conducive for fantasy or to get him where we've seen him get to. I think he's going to be great still, but it's it just sucks because he is that good of a player.
Oh yeah.
He's worth the value that you got him for. But it's I don't know if you can get out on him for the value that you once could, and that doesn't feel good. You know what I mean?
I know.
That doesn't feel good. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of beat the sunk cost fallacy thing.
Yeah.
And not that there's a ton of sunk costs. He's still a top 5 dynasty, top 3 probably dynasty running back, but it's I feel out of those elite assets, you want to scrape out as much value as possible. You know what I mean? You want to scrape out as much as possible while they're elite. and young, and I don't feel like I'm getting that opportunity. I almost feel like it's just passing me by every day, and like it's just going to be gone. So I do want to make a move, and this sounded good to me. Like Nick Chubb at first, I'm like, yeah, like that would make me go old, and taking a first would make me go old. But it almost seems like everybody else is looking at JT like he's not that valuable. So
yeah, I had the same thing happen with me with actually I have a roster with Chubb and JT and Derrick Henry. And I had these same thoughts, 2 seasons ago with Derrick Henry. Now I can't get anything back for him. Like everyone just knows that like the cliff's right there. Nobody really wants him, and I can't really get anything for him. So I'm stuck with just his production, which is fine. But there's not a whole lot of trade. If I wasn't competing, if I was one of the middling teams, like then yeah, you could move off of him. But I just haven't found myself in that situation really where I have to sell off assets. But it's just one of those things. I was just thinking we're going to have this kind of conversation about JT, July of 24 or July of 25.
I think you're right. So I think July of 25 is definitely going to be the conversation. And I also think what you said is a big part of the calculation too, is the teams are good. So I'm struggling to be like, why do I need to get off of this good asset? You know what I mean? It's like, what's forcing me to be better? And obviously we always want to improve. That's a big part of what we talk about, is really always trying to improve the team and only doing that. And I feel like I'm like hindering myself by not making a move with him, but I got to find that right move. Cause like, I feel like here's the thing, here's the final point, I guess, that I'm like coming to is with a player like JT, you can't sell for something you can't sell for the box. You got to get back at least a smaller boat.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You can't sell for like, just to sell. I got to get back something that like means something, and like that's good, and that's becoming difficult, right? Like that's I think what's becoming the tougher part is getting back like serious return for that asset, because you can't play around with these kind of assets. You may as well just hold them like you did Derrick Henry, because they're going to give you at least good enough return.
Yep.
So it's playing that game. Yeah. We got to figure out ways to get out on the Derrick Henrys though at the right times, those kind of players at the right times.
So hard.
It is.
I mean, unless you're rebuilding or you're just really, really middling, like then it's a lot easier to get rid of those guys. But if there's always that chance, then it's like for me, it's just really hard for me to move off the points.
Yeah. You just have to find those value dips for other players and grab the right ones. You just got to kind of foresee it. It's hard to do, but I think it's very possible. I think you got to really be on the ball, really paying attention to dynasty values, really being paying attention to all that kind of stuff to kind of catch the dips from other players. I think like I did it to a lesser extent with like Etienne moving on to Gibbs and that kind of thing. And like with, the Evans, I think Evans, Etienne, Gibbs second kind of trade or whatever it was. Like those are the kind where you're trying to get ahead of the curve. You know what I mean? And I think that for me, it felt like I did that really well in getting back an asset that is a boat almost. Like Gibbs is like already there almost. You know what I mean? In terms of value, he's already a top 5 dynasty running back. So I can just sell him right now for plus and I win. You know what I mean? I'm great and I feel good. So I think that's kind of where I want to be with JT, is like being able to get an asset back like that, where it's like I feel so good about it that it's like I don't even have to, I can just be like, all right, at least I'm comfortable moving on from it. Yeah. So I thought the Nick Chubb discussion was super interesting because they were talking about, and they were, I think this trade happened. I think this trade happened. This was like, so this, some people are on this train, I think, but it was just an interesting conversation around the longevity that both have left. And I do think JT has way more. I just think that Chubb is going to be super good this year, and that's very valuable.
Cool. Anything else you want to talk about?
No.
Go.
We talked like 9 minutes on Nick Chubb and JT. So
that's fun though. And I said we didn't have any content. All right. Well, thanks everyone for giving us a listen. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Underdog, at Uriah Dawkins, and at Willie Beeman DFF. Hop in our Discord, and if you can, give us a listen on Spotify. It would help out a lot. Other than that, have a good night.
Do I have to create a Threads account for Dynasty Underdog?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't believe it. I don't believe in it.
It happens. People ain't going anywhere.
I don't believe in it. I've had zero problems with Twitter. Zero.
It'll be fine. It's where we all live. It's fine.
The guy who runs it's a jackass, but that site's still great.
Oh, I think he's hilarious.
He's something.
I don't know.
He's something.
A rich man that could do whatever he wants. I mean, part of it like hates him, but on the other hand, like it's fucking hilarious. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a monster. Yeah, he's just crazy. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would do what he's doing with the power he has. So.
I know. Sometimes you're just like, I don't think it's right. So, but yeah, whatever.
A lot of things aren't right.
As long as he keeps Twitter open, I'll
Yeah,
be happy.
as long as he keeps it running, I'm not gonna
Exactly.
worry too much about what he's doing. Just keep my stupid social media running so I can not think about reality for a little bit longer.
Just a little bit, yeah. All right, that's enough.
Where's our Twitter? Where's our fantasy community gonna go? That's the worrisome thing. Is like it can't be built back up on Threads. Get the hell out of here, man.
No. I mean,
No.
Can't go to Reddit.
Oh please, jeez, you want to hate
Jesus
yourself
Christ.
a little bit more? Okay, no, please. We don't need to do that. Oh my goodness.
All right, off the rails.
All right.
Happy night, dude.
Later, fam. Have a good night.